Korea and the United States became official free trade partners on Thursday, March 15. 5 years and 9 months after the first negotiations took place in 2006.
Since the beginning of the negotiation for FTA between Korea and USA, there have been some up and downs in the negotiation. The Korean people were not satisfied with the outcomes of the two rounds of renegotiations. Many Korean people thought that we lost too much. We made concessions too much. So the Korean government should have to spend more time and spend more efforts to persuade those people to understand the need of the Korea-US FTA.
Both sides are satisfied with the final treaty that was signed.
I give it an A+.
우리는 이제 수미양가라고 하지 않습니까? 저는 수를 받고 싶습니다.
The first negotiations were held in 2006, and both countries finalized the deal last year. On March 15th, the treaty was officially implemented. Now that the treaty is in effect, nearly 81% of all goods imported from the U.S. to Korea are duty-free. And nearly 96% of all Korean goods exported to the U.S. will be duty-free within the next 5 years.
한미 FTA 발효는 이제 우리와 미국 또는 한국과 세계 경제가 본격적으로 개방과 경쟁 시대에 접어들었다라는 어떤 상징이라고 볼 수 있겠습니다.
When two or more countries sign an FTA or a free trade agreement, they eliminate trade barriers such as tariffs and import quotas on most goods and services traded between them. In short, an FTA between different countries allows them to trade freely with each other. A free trade agreement is also called a regional trade agreement because most free trade deals are signed by countries within the same region. Classic examples include the Free Trade Pact signed by member countries of the European Union and the North American Free Trade Agreement, which is also known as the NAFTA. A total of 314 regional trade agreements were in effect as of late 2011, according to the World Trade Organization. Free trade agreements are the most prevalent, taking up more than 58% of all RTAs.
To participate in FTA is kind of the global trends. So we have to participate in the FTA very actively. I think this is really needed action as well as the important action for the future of Korean economy.
For Korea, the free trade agreement with the world's largest economy is expected to bring about many benefits. Korea's gross domestic product is expected to increase by nearly 6% over the next decade thanks to the KORUS FTA. Roughly 350,000 jobs will be created in the long run, and because most trade barriers will be lifted, Korea's trade surplus with the United States will reach an average of $140 million every year for the next 15 years. Some industries in Korea are especially well positioned to benefit from the free trade deal.
한미 FTA에서 가장 수혜받는 업종은 아무래도 자동차라든지 기계 그리고 일부 고급 섬유 업종이 되겠습니다. 좀 바꿔 말하면 그 부분들은 이미 우리나라가 충분한 경쟁력을 갖추고 있기 때문에 수출을 잘하고 있는 부분이고 그래서 이제 추가적으로 좀 더 나아진다라고 볼 수 있겠고요. 그래서 현재 시점과 비교를 한다기보다는 해당 분야가 앞으로의 경쟁 관계가 어떻게 바뀔 것인가의 관점에서 봐야 할 것을 보입니다.
Analysts say that Korean car makers and manufacturers of auto parts will reap the greatest benefits. With the deal, all tariffs for Korean auto parts exported to the U.S. were eliminated. Meanwhile, tariffs for Korean cars will be eliminated in 2 phases. The U.S. will impose an import tax of 2.5% on Korean cars until the tariff is abolished in 2016. For imported American cars, there will be an import tax of 8% for the next 3 years. In 2015, that rate will drop to 4% to then 0 in 2016.
일본이나 독일보다도 먼저 시장을 갖다가 선점할 수 있는 그런 효과가 제일 크다 하겠습니다. 우리 자동차 수출도 연간 한 7억 2천만 불 정도 수출 증대 효과를 갖다가 나타낼 수 있고요.
From its beginning at negotiating tables in Washington until its final implementation, the path of the KORUS FTA has been rocky to say the least. Yet observers say that demonstrations against the FTA will still go on for the time being. Over the next 15 years, Korea's agricultural industry is expected to lose up to $11 billion. Economists say the livestock industry will suffer the most, possibly losing up to $6.5 billion.
It's quite very difficult, actually, in terms of the trade of agricultural products. Certainly, the USA producers have comparative advantages than Korean producers.
Merchants at the livestock market in Seoul's Majangdong are worried about the repercussions of the KORUS FTA.
느닷없이 그냥 풀어가지고 이것저것 다 들어오면 이제 우리 어떡하냐고요. 이거 마장동에 사람 저기 손님한 개나 있는가 봐봐. 빗질하기로 싹 쓸은 것만 이러 아무것도 없고 깨끗하잖아.
아무 봐봐 이렇게 놓은 거 있잖아요. 수입이 밀고 들어가보니까 장사가 안 돼요. 수입이 싸보니까.
이게 뭐 이건 세계적인 뭐 흐름 추세인데 이거를 뭐 어떻게?
A big concern that lingers in the minds of livestock farmers is the growing amount of cheap American beef hitting local markets.
한 10여 년 동안은 참 좋았죠. 좋았는데 요번에 이제 FTA 저거 되면서 좀 큰 어려움이 많죠. 속값 하락에 수입선은 자꾸 들어오지. 뭐 지 어렵다고들 그러죠. 그렇다고 그러면서 어려우면서도 그렇다고 또 축산인들이 손을 놓고 이것도 안 할 수는 없잖아요. 또 이게 주업인데.
Korean beef production is forecast to decrease by $2.4 billion over the next decade.
So what we need in Korea is the government should have to prepare some follow-up measures to protect the interest of the Korean farmers and Korean fishermen. As you know very well, the Korean government already prepared a financial support, which was equivalent of the 22.1 trillion won. On the top of that, the Korean government should have to consider the new the follow-up measures, such as the support for the farmers who wanted to get a new job, or when they stop farming, how much and what kind of aid the Korean government should provide to them.
The Korean government has pledged to subsidize the local livestock industry for the next 10 years with roughly $1.8 billion.
One thing we have to remember is all decisions regarding the FTA should be considered exclusively based on the economic reasons, not political reasons. I think this will be very important for the successful results from the FTAs with many countries around the world. In this context, I think the Korea-US FTA could be a kind of some good chance for us to step up our status, the national status in the international arena.
Although the free trade agreement with the United States is likely to create a business boom for Korean automakers and manufacturers, there are issues that have yet to be ironed out, including agricultural losses and investor-state disputes. The way things stand, implementing the deal was just the beginning.